I talk a little Springfield Cardinals baseball. Dan Reiter on the line with us. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, got a little bit of a homestand starting tonight. Northwest Arkansas coming in. The Naturals, the Kansas City Royals AA team. I wanted to ask you, do you guys see a little bit of a spike when the Naturals come in versus other opponents?
Absolutely. It's really the only one that you see that with. You might have a couple fans from Tulsa that make the drive just because, it's a close one and you get some of your diehards, but really the only one that's like from an attendance perspective, it's the Naturals, and that's because of the Royals fans. So yeah, if you gave it my way once a month, we would play the Naturals, just because it's the one that really helps us. And even last year, it was really cool. We had a partnership with a group out of Kansas City, because they were so excited about seeing Cags. And I mean, they had a group like 2 days in a row that was, 150 strong that was there just to watch him in the minor leagues. So the Naturals, it's really, when we actually put in a schedule request, well, first of all, they don't listen to everything you ask for. So let's just clarify when people, why did you ask for this? So it's all a request. But it's really the one team. Number one is the Naturals, and then number two is Tulsa. And I think Tulsa is a little different just because that's more, we think there's a lot that we could develop with Tulsa, especially the cities kind of seem to have a rivalry over Route 66. So we think that there might be something to be able to do in the future.
Dan, let's talk a little bit about the schedule of the team itself. Took a big western swing and so forth. Are those swings to the south end, have they completed now for the year, or do you have one more?
We still have our biggest one. We still have to go to Corpus Christi. And so that's the longest bus trip of the season. And so those guys still kind of have that one to go. And again, it's not fun, but it's also better than what it used to be. And what I mean is, it used to be they would go to Corpus Christi and you only have 3 or 4 games, then you're back on a bus to go somewhere else. So the new system with the minor leagues, where they actually have a travel day at the beginning and the end of the trip, makes it better, but it's still not a fun trip for the guys. 16 hours on a bus is not a fun time that they're dying to do.
Arthur?
Dan, I think I'm going to try it tonight. It's going to be awfully hot, and that's going to be the case throughout the week. I mean, I guess it's summer, it's baseball, the show goes on, but how concerned are you about that affecting crowds?
It affects the crowds. It absolutely affects the crowds. And typically, from what I've experienced, that about 93 and below, people in the Ozarks, they'd rather be at a hot baseball game than a cold one. Once we get to about 94 and above is when I think it turns into a little bit of a deterrent. But it's where I would tell people, please, if it was me, I would be buying my tickets on the shade. And number two is figuring out where the breezeways are, so that if you need to get up, you can get a little bit of the breeze. But when we have our games, that's part of where our game times the last few years, we've kind of altered them to try to play into the fact that you get that summer heat from about July 15th to August 15th is kind of the hottest 30-day period in the Ozarks. So recommend to everyone you can. I would personally buy my tickets in the shade if I were you.
Good advice there. Dan, I wanted to ask you, how do you guys, as the GM, how do you find out when the Cardinals want to move somebody up? We were talking about, it looks like it's going to be Tulsa and Springfield in the playoffs, whether the Cardinals win the first half or don't, or second half or don't. But like a Reniel Rodriguez and a Jesus Baez, guys like that are the good young stars now that are lighting it up. How do you find out? And obviously you have no say in that, correct? In terms of that, they don't care where they are as long as they're developing and continuing up the ladder, correct?
That is correct. I have zero say. So please don't yell at me when we lose some of these really good prospects. But it's interesting because, I'll describe it like this. When you're at a sports game and they're going to play the national anthem, everyone wants to stop, right, and honor the anthem. But there's still people that have to do work. There's still the video board operators, the guy with the microphones. There's still work behind the scenes. And so sometimes we might find out a little bit before the players. And so we want to be very respectful to make sure that the person who needs to have that conversation with them is their manager. And so sometimes we might find out, but there's not a huge gap either direction. But the Cardinals, they need to make sure that they've got transportation for the players. They're going to have uniforms in the cities that they go to. And the other one is you want to make sure they've got housing, that there's a place when they show up in a new city that they've got to live. And really from my perspective as the GM, those are really the main things that we're trying to help them with is, jersey, housing, and travel. Is can we make sure we get them there, we get them a space to live, and we can get them a uniform for the game. And so that's really the back end for us, what we're trying to do. And I'm sure what you're alluding to is that there's been a lot of that in the last couple of weeks in the Cardinals. And I think yesterday someone told me that we're going to have 9 new players on our roster compared to the last time that they were in town. And just it's a combination of the trade deadline. It's a combination of guys getting moved up, and also the draft. And when all those things happen in a very short time period, there's significant changes. And the bad part is our team was playing great, and you like the guys and create relationships. The good part is that as an organization, the St. Louis Cardinals, man, they got some really exciting talent that got drafted, that got traded, and that's moving up from single A. So there's a lot of new talent that I'm excited to see and watch. And you kind of mentioned it looks like it's us in Tulsa. There's still a lot of baseball to be played. And you need to make sure you see the guys gel well. And I think that's kind of what stage they're going to be in, and what the manager, Patrick Anderson, that's probably going to be his primary focus, is making sure you're creating that team culture where they all want to thrive together.
I don't remember what the year was, Dan, but there was a particular segment of the Cardinals' existence when there were 55 roster changes, I think, during the course of the summer. So you see those players going back and forth. Let me ask you a quick question about the stadium itself. You're obviously the primary tenant. The city owns the stadium. Has it utilized it any for outdoor concerts or anything of that nature?
It's still stuff that we're talking about. They've utilized Celebrate Springfield. It has kind of had their kind of big event there, which has been great. But that's the thing that we are staying actively discussing with the city is the utilization. But I promise you, one thing I never thought about as a general manager was how much legal terms I've had to read. And I can tell you there's a really big lease with a lot of different terms. But really the city's motivation when they were working with us on that lease, they want us to be able to take care of it without being a drain on the taxpayers. They don't want us going back there and saying, oh, we need this, we need this. So it's really set up in a way that the Cardinals can be the primary tenant, and really the funding streams can help take care of the things you have to do to maintain a stadium. And like one of those is really we're preparing to totally redo our field at the end of this season. And we're utilizing a fund that's already there and a little bit of money from our ownership group so that we're not going to the citizens saying, hey, now we need this. And I think the city's very aware to make sure that, yes, they own it, but they want really the Cardinals to be the ones to make sure that we take care of it.
Sure.
Well, Dan, tell us about the ownership group. What entity actually owns the franchise?
At Diamond Baseball Holdings. So Diamond Baseball Holdings, whenever the 2021, the Major League and Minor League Baseball agreement changed, a group of investors saw an opportunity to really grow minor league baseball. And so they now own 48 of the affiliated minor league teams. And I've never seen such collaboration and idea sharing in minor league baseball as what Diamond Baseball Holdings is doing. And I think the resources they've given us has been unbelievable. And really the support, the back end, they want us to improve, to get better. And, I think sometimes people hear the phrase private equity and they immediately hate it, just, I don't like it. But the fact of the matter is that if we improve and we get better, then that means there's more butts in the seats. There's more people in downtown Springfield, and it's really a community win. And I think that's really a cool alignment, is when your ownership group can be happy and your community can try to have more people supporting the team. I actually think that's a great combination for success. And so I think it's been fun. I'm excited. I just got another trip booked to go do some of that idea sharing with other AA GMs. And, really they're changing the game and innovating the sport.
Well, and you mentioned it earlier, excuse me, but the trade deadline, you get new toys in a lot of cases. And I imagine this is the last time we'll see the Cardinals and Brewers actually trading with each other, because it's two of the better farm systems in baseball. They're going to be battling for years if those young guys develop. But you did get Josiah Ragsdale is in Springfield now. He was one of the Brewers' top prospects in the outfield. And then Alexander Frias, they've sent him to Palm Beach in A-ball. But these are two guys that at least maybe next year may be playing together in Springfield, that ultimately jumped into the top 6 in the Cardinals prospect rankings. That's got to be exciting for you guys as well.
Absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love talking about bobbleheads and promotions and fun, and that's just kind of who I am. You know, I like goofy Christmas sweaters and I like the fun, but all of us that work there, we still love the baseball, and you got to be excited about guys that have that kind of talent, and guys that have got, 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases in the minor leagues. Yeah, they're fun to watch. And to see power arms that are striking guys out, they're fun to watch. And so I think as a staff, yes, we're excited about what we do that's fun and community driven and gets people to games. But man, yeah, the baseball's fun. And especially, when you get to that stretch where you can start mentioning the words playoffs, it's fun. And that's another alignment, that I do want to mention is that, you kind of talked about when the guys move up or how they make those decisions. They make them on a lot of different assets. And one of them is that, you want guys playing competitive games, and you want those guys having that atmosphere, and you want them to be able to push. And so it's a balance of making sure that they're developed, and they're ready to go to the next level, but you want them in competitive games. But then other times they're actually working on something very small, and they could be hitting the heck out of the ball, but it's actually on defense is what the minor league system is having them focus on, and people don't see that. And I can tell you, J.J. Weatherholt, what I remember with J.J. Weatherholt was how much additional practice he was doing at second base before the gates even opened. And people saw him hitting, and why isn't he moving up? And it's like, well, you ought to see the work that he's doing at second base before the games. That's why. And sometimes when guys are doing really well, that's what people are looking at. But they have other things, and it might be that they've got 2 pitches and they need a third pitch, or, hey, they can hit home runs, but can they hit an 0-2 curveball? And those are really the things in minor league baseball that's nuanced to make sure that they're ready for the next level.
Well, we've talked a lot of baseball. We did bring you on to talk about bobbleheads and beers and tacos and all that, and hot dogs and brats. What are the highlights of this homestand? 6-game homestand, Northwest Arkansas, and kind of give us the Cliff's notes of what fans can expect this week.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Every single day has got it. We've got our Taco Tuesday and Ozark Snipe Hunters tonight. We got the Wiener Wednesday and the Wolf Wednesday on Wednesday, so you can get dogs and bring your dog and get $2 dogs. Thursday, we've talked a lot about, the Cashew Chickens and how we did keep the Springfield Cashew Chickens. Leong's is actually going to be giving away a Springfield Cashew Chickens replica jersey. So I'm actually really excited about that on Thursday. And I think fans, I love the fact that I can see a kid between 5 and 95 wearing Cashew Chickens and they're embracing it. So that's always a fun one on Thursday. Friday, we're doing a post-game concert with Faith and Family. That's been something the last couple of years we've really tried to grow. And so really being able to have a Faith and Family night that we can have a post-game concert has been really cool on the Friday. And then Saturday, I know this is the one, Scott, that you're going to be the most excited about, but it's in our Cardinals Red Era night, which, is celebrating the union of a famous football player out of Kansas City and a pop star. So we'll be having a lot of her music playing at the stadium on Saturday, but also, Highland Dairy, you can't say enough good things about what Highland Dairy does in this community. And they're giving away lunch boxes for kids on that Saturday, which is purposely timed right before the kids go back to school. Here's your Springfield Cardinals lunchbox. And then we do close out the homestand on Sunday. And it's going to be a goofy one that's a little outside of my norm, but it's the SpongeBob night. And I was a little too old to get into SpongeBob. My younger brother loved SpongeBob. My kids love SpongeBob. Pretty much every millennial loves SpongeBob. And our guys are going to be in SpongeBob jerseys. And it is one of the most statement jerseys our team will have ever worn on Sunday. So it's gonna have an aesthetic to it, but it's also, I'll tell you, when you play that SpongeBob music on a day game, you have never heard kids scream so loud as singing the SpongeBob SquarePants song.
That is so good too, Dan. And now we're talking about all the good times. Let's emphasize the fact that regardless of what happens on December the 1st, you guys will be playing next year.
Yeah, and that's true. And there's really not a lot of things to really talk about. And Scott, you kind of asked a question earlier where it was like, do I find out before anyone? And when it does come to that collective bargaining, I'll literally be reading the sports page just like you guys, trying to understand what's going on. So I will not be privy to any information. And honestly, I'm really glad I won't be privy to any other information. But a part of this is that there will be minor league baseball in 2027. And regardless of what happens at the major league level, there will be minor league baseball in 2027.
Art, anything else?
No, I think we've covered it.
Dan, you going to take care of Art tonight? Keep him hydrated?
Absolutely. Art, you shoot me a text. We'll make sure you got your taken care of, all right?
All right, I'll do it, Dan.
You bet. Dan,
Sounds
always
good,
appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next homestand.
Sounds great. Appreciate you guys.